Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Talker Show. If you have any construction needs, maybe you need a pergola or something built, check out K&H Construction, our local construction company. Chris Helms, he'll take care of you. Let him know DV LeBron sent you. Today, my very special guest is the new superintendent of Waxahachie ISD, Miss Becky McCutchen, and the CFO, Mr. Ryan Cowden. How you doing?
Hi, we're doing well. How are you
I'm
today?
good. I'm very glad to have you on. Welcome to the community. I know you've been here how long now?
About four and a half
Four and a
months.
half months. Oh, you got this all figured out. So I wanted to have you on to introduce you to the community, also to talk about the budget that was passed, tax rate, that kind of stuff. I know that you were not part of it too much, but that's why I guess we haven't Mr. Called in because he knows all the numbers that when it comes to the ISD. So I really appreciate both of you coming on. Miss McCutcheon, can you talk to me about your journey? Introduce yourself to the community.
Sure. So like I said, I've been here for about four and a half months. My first official day with Waxahachie ISD was June 1st. And so I actually started my education career a long time ago, 1997. I started in a really small town in West Texas as an ag teacher and a science teacher. And as you can imagine, in really small schools, I had a lot of opportunities to do a lot of different things. And so I did that for 5 or 6 years, and then I moved into the world of special education. I taught special education for a year. Then I moved into an educational diagnostician role for 3 years. And from there, I became a special education director for a 7 school district, or excuse me, 11 district co-op. And that's really where I guess, found my love for administration and for working with principals and with other superintendents and with school boards. And since then, this is now my 11th year as a school superintendent. And I've been fortunate to work with a lot of great people, a lot of great boards, a lot of great administrators, and serve amazing students and their families. And so I think all of that has really led me to where I'm at today at Waxahachie ISD.
Ryan, you're going to be a little bored at the beginning of this interview, but I got to introduce her into the community.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Superintendent McCutcheon, so you have done a lot of different administrative, and thank you for being in special education. As a dad who has several special needs kids, I do appreciate people who dedicate their life to that. But thank you so much. How have you found the district coming in?
You know, I actually was just talking to one of our board members today, and everyone else that I've talked to, this is an amazing district. It is a great place. The community has such pride in everything they do. You see that down on the square, in all of the shops and all of the events on the weekends, but they also have that pride in everything the school district does. And we are truly blessed by that, to have a community that supports the district in the manner they do. So we have great people on board. I've met so many amazing individuals that pour their heart and their life into serving the kids here. Our families are great. I know we're growing and a lot of new folks coming in, but there's a lot of history and tradition as well. And we see that in everything the kids do. So it's been so far truly amazing.
Because you're at the top, you're the leader under the school board. You have to set the tone for the district. You have to set the culture. What kind of culture and what kind of leadership style would you like to set for WISD? Or yes.
So I guess probably the easiest way for me to talk about what I feel the culture of the district can be and is, and we can always just kind of own some steps to get better, and that's everyone, including myself. When people ask me what my vision for the district is, it's simple. I want us to be the district that is considered the model district in this area and in the state. The district that people look to and are just in awe of all the amazing things our kids are doing. In a lot of ways, that's happening already. I know a lot of people all over the state, and they'll call or they'll email and they'll say, "Hey, what are y'all doing at your junior high? There's a lot of academic growth there." Or they'll ask about specific elementary programs, or they'll ask about our amazing secondaries, our high school of choice, or global, or even Waxahachie High School, and they just really want to know what we're doing because people notice that. And so for me, for us to continue to grow and just expand on being that model district, I feel like 3 things need to happen that will deal with culture. And the first one is just having high standards and high expectations for everything we do, everything our children, our kids do, everything in our classrooms, everything in our campuses, just every program is based off of absolute high standard. I think we're there. I think there's always places to get better, but when I think about the way we operate in our campuses, I feel like that is at the high standard level. The second one is I very much want our district to be a place for open communication and meaningful conversations that allow for issues or concerns or improvement processes to be worked out. I've said before, I know that social media has its place, but I think when social media is used as a way to talk about concerns, then that's not meaningful communication that allows for improvement. And then the third one, all of this is based on trust. And to me, trust happens when we operate with excellence in mind and with transparency and with high integrity. That all equals high ethics. That all lends itself to trust. And so for me, that is really what I see for our district moving forward. We build on that trust and we expand our I guess, thought process and maybe just reputation as being the model district that everybody wants to be like.
Unfortunately, I have to deal with because of what I do with this podcast, I have to be on the online world and on the Facebooks, the Instagrams and stuff like that as part of the podcast. But I do enjoy this because I get to bring, I get to introduce people like you to your community, which you're serving. There's so many parents right now who are trusting their kids in an education system that you're leading. So it's just really cool to be able to get you out there, even if it involves having to deal with Facebook stuff. Now, there's a difference. There's a difference between what you've handled before and what you're doing now. This is much larger than what you're used to. It's something that has been brought up here and there because this is a larger district. How have you handled that part?
So I truly feel like moving into the larger district, it's almost easier in a way because we have so many amazing folks that are specialists in their area. For example, Mr. Calden. And then we have directors and assistant superintendents that really do serve as specialists for their specific area. Honestly, for me, having served in those really small school districts where I have been responsible for everything in the classroom, I have been responsible for special programs. I oversaw safety. I've overseen construction. I've built a high school before where I was actually the project manager. And I actually have done things in the business office in terms of like opening the budget and approving the requisitions and all the day-to-day processes that go into running a school. I have experience in. So honestly, I feel like that makes moving into a bigger district almost easier because as long as I have the knowledge that can maybe support the things that I'm talking about, it lends itself to credibility. I feel like I would be doing a disservice to the district if I didn't have that background knowledge and experience.
I definitely, that's something that we had talked about as far as you being you were at some points, you were the CFO, you were the construction rep, and those are things that you had to do. Gives you a lot of experience and insight into the different jobs that happen to keep a district running. It's a difficult job. Now, there's one thing that people appreciate here in Ellis County and in Waxahachie is the school district being a good steward of the taxpayer money. As you know, property taxes in Texas are rough. And there's a lot that goes into school finance. Mr. Calden knows. I mean, it's like a magic trick. So people are concerned on how the district spends money. So can you talk about the way you look at, being a good steward of the people's money?
Absolutely. We have to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money. We have to ensure we're following every program, every process, every requirement of a school finance system that is incredibly detailed and enormous. And one single little thing, a free and reduced lunch application that's filled out incorrectly, can actually cause problems on our audit. And so it's little things like that make school finance very difficult. And Mr. Calden can talk to you about probably the bigger things as well. But one of the things that was a big draw for me for Waxahachie ISD was the balanced budget. When a district begins to operate outside of a balanced budget is when things can happen if you consider like the district imploding, because you end up with living off of your savings basically, and like you would do at home if you were living outside your means, and eventually that money runs out and you cannot continue to operate that way. So being fiscally responsible is very important to me. I commend our school board and Mr. Calden for ensuring that our budgets are balanced and that we are not relying on our savings, in school districts, you call that a fund balance, to operate. I think when we do that and we're very open and honest about where we are, that is another component that leads to trust.
Right.
And so we have worked through that. And I've been talking to the staff about that at our campus rounds, about what our budgeting situation looks like in terms of salaries. It's very balanced.
What do you think about because you've been meeting staff and, there's always 80% or so of the budget is personnel, is what I've always been told, is personnel on that M&O. What are some of the concerns that you saw when it came to pay and other things? Because there's been a lot of teachers leaving. They're leaving the profession. They're gone. And I'm sure Waxahachie ISD hasn't been immune to some of that. Can you talk about that, what you've seen in your 4 months here?
Sure. And you're right. There are many individuals that leave the profession because it is incredibly difficult. Being in education, being a teacher, being a CFO, being a principal, any role that you play in school business, it's so hard. And I truly feel like in the last 5 years, it's gotten to be where it's more difficult. And so some people just decide to move in different directions. And so what I have been talking with the staff, and I've been very open and honest about our salary and the decisions that were made to try to give everyone a raise this year. It's something that was very important to the board. And Mr. Calden worked very hard with our HR team to make sure we were able to do that. I can't speak about other districts. I don't know how they develop their salaries and their budgets in our surrounding area, but I do know that we are trying very hard to be competitive on the salary side with all of our staff, and we're also going to remain in that balanced budget, and that is huge for fiscal responsibility.
It is, and you guys are working on a bigger sphere now. I mean, it used to be Waxahachie was out here. Now you're a suburb of Dallas. Now things are moving this way. It's a lot more crowded than when I got here in 14 to this area. A lot more crowded, a lot more stuff. And I'm sure you've seen the complaints about the 77. And now we're going to have 2 warehouses. It's just a lot of traffic and people all over it. So it's a growing district. And one of the parts of growing was they passed a bond before you got here. And so there's construction projects. Can you kind of give me an update on that? And Mr. Calden, if you want to chime in on the financials, are we on budget? Were there some overruns that we had to do? How are we doing with this?
Yes, sir. DB, thanks for having me back on. I appreciate the opportunity.
Man,
and
I got nothing but love for you, brother.
Man, I appreciate it. As it relates to the construction projects and the bonds from 2023, we've completed 2 of the new elementary schools that were in Proposition A. So we've opened Jimmy Ray. We've opened the new Wildman STEAM Academy. We have not started construction on that 3rd elementary school. So strange enough for us, what we've noticed is demographically, the number of students that we anticipated to have is actually slowing down a little bit. So our enrollment at elementary is actually lagging behind our estimates at this point. So right now, again, to be good stewards of taxpayers' resources, we've not gone out and built a 3rd elementary school that we were going to call Frankie Lou Jett Elementary. We haven't built it yet because we don't really have that need from an elementary capacity standpoint.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of where we stand in Proposition A. This past summer, also in Proposition A, we did some expansion work at what was originally called the 9th grade academy, and then Global High School was there. We've referred to it as the Hancock building, but that's where Global Junior High is now. So they've moved from the old high school building across Indian Drive. We expanded that building this past summer and got that work mostly complete at this point. We're still finishing up a track and field behind the campus so that students don't have to go back across Indian Drive for those athletic activities and for those PE opportunities. We also did some expansions at Findlay and at Howard Junior Highs as well. So all that work is wrapped up at this point, except for that athletic track and field. DB, all of those projects were on budget. except for Finley and Howard. Those did come in. The initial pricing came in higher than what we anticipated on the bond. But because we had saved some money in the building of Jimmy Ray and the building of Wildman, we were able to use that project savings to fully do our anticipated scope over at Finley and at Howard. So all those projects at this point have been completed with the exception of the track and field behind Hancock, which is where Coleman Junior High
That
is.
new high school that's going to be built along, it's over by the lake, right? I believe.
Yes, sir.
How's that going?
Yeah, so great question. We have meetings every week as a district staff along with our architect to talk about the progress of it. So right now, a lot of concrete's been poured on site. So it's a 500,000 square foot building, and if you can think about getting student and parent and educator traffic in and out of that campus, there's a lot of concrete on the ground for driveways, parking lots, etc. So right now, as we've been through a really dry period from the atmospheric conditions, we've had a real good opportunity to get in there and start pouring driveways so that we can make sure that we have site access as we get into the fall and winter months where we expect it to be a little bit more wet. First shipments of steel have arrived on site and they've started being erected. So we're starting in some of the main academic areas and we're kind of working our way around the building with one crane that's already on site. We anticipate a second crane will be on site shortly, probably within the month or so, and it will start at the back of the building and some fine art areas and work its way around to athletics. So work is really taking shape out there. If you drive down Old Italy Road, and I believe you can even see it on 77 or 35 from the other side of the building, you can start seeing that steel go up, and second story is starting to be framed out, and then there is some work out there right now on the firewalls, the CMU masonry units that delineate the various sections of the building. But like I said, it's a 500,000 square foot project, so it will take a good bit of time for that project to be fully done. But right now we're in the middle of erecting steel at this point on that site.
What's the estimated on that one?
We're anticipating that full completion will be about April of 2027, opening scheduled for August of 2027. So there's a little bit of a buffer window in there from scheduled completion to the start of class. But right now, we're still on time and we're on budget on that project.
You're going to have to do a big hiring drive, Ms. McCutchen. There's going to be a lot of staff members going to be needed for that. Are you guys going to like stage or stagger opening, I think is what they call it, like where you do a ninth grade only the first year? And that is that kind of the plan right now, or is it too early to even look at that? Go ahead.
So it actually is the plan, but we are starting for the 27-28 school year with freshmen and sophomores.
Oh, okay.
And so there'll be 2 grade levels at that campus. We know the campus won't be full at that point. Capacity will not be reached. But so then as we move forward, we'll add another grade level each year. So it'll be 3 full years before there's 4 grade levels in that campus.
That's going to be one heck of a project. People have some concerns about getting in and out of there because that road is, it was a small road to begin with. And so there's going to be some growing pains, but that's with anything. That's pretty much anything around here now. So
sure. And I know you can, Mr. Calder can speak about it. I'll speak a little bit about the road situation there. So TxDOT has committed to building a new road out there. It's going to be spur 394 coming off of 35 and 77 at exit 397. The bridge is called the Waxahachie Crossing Bridge right now. I believe it's the old Ganaway Dairy Bridge. So from 35 all the way connecting into Old Italy Road and to Howard Road will be the new spur 394. So that will help with traffic. I actually met with TxDOT on Friday. Mr. Calder doesn't even know this yet because we haven't had time to speak about it. But they did tell me that they were actually planning to put a light at that intersection, which is we were a signal light. We were kind of worried about that. There's a lot of traffic in that little intersection.
Yeah.
And the city of Waxahachie is also committed to from that intersection that's right there at the corner of the new high school where 394 will meet Old Italy. They've committed to redoing that road, maybe expanding it a little bit. We have heard anywhere from maybe 5 lanes to 3 lanes. There'll be that turning lane in the middle. So I'm not exactly sure what their plans are. The city could probably answer that for you more so. And then they're going to be coming off of Old Italy Road. It's hard to visualize without a map, but they will be coming back building a new road off of Old Italy Road that will actually meet into 77, very close to Dunaway Elementary. So there'll be some road construction going on that we do think will help alleviate the concern with traffic in that
That's
area.
fantastic.
DV, the state, it tells us, or TxDOT is telling us that if you take what North Grove is, you've got that 2-lane divided with the nice landscaped median and sidewalks. That's what 394 is going to look like in front of the building.
Oh,
As it kind of makes its way from the west side of 35 and 77. Ultimately, the goal for TxDOT is to get it all the way to the east side and have it connect to 287 and make another bypass or another kind of like a loop all around the city of Waxahachie. So really looking forward to that road when it comes in, because it will have a really nice aesthetic, but it will really help with that traffic flow in front of that.
yeah, because right now it's kind of a small thing. I'm really glad that you were able to get a hold of TxDOT and find that out. That's great news to parents that are going to be zoned for that school, because I'm sure they're concerned looking at that too. So I was actually looking at, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm sorry. They assured us that Spur 394 will be complete all the way into Howard Road by the time our high school opens in August 2020.
Nice. I was actually looking at properties with my wife out there that at one point when we were looking at homes, and we did see that road and saw the construction right there that was going to be the high school. So, but thank you so much for updating the public on that one. Definitely something that I'm sure parents wanted to hear. Now I'll get into the nitty gritty, the budget stuff that I like to cover every year so that people know kind of what's going on. Now tell me, Mr. Calden, I didn't really get a chance to look at this year's budget, so I'm coming a little cold, but I have learned some things about what questions to ask on it. So how did we do with the revenue that's came in this year? You said that there's been a change in the amount enrolling has kind of slowed. When you were doing this budget, what did that look like? Because I know that affects ADA, that affects funding. If you overshoot the population that you're like, if you say it's going to be a bigger number, you say growth is going to be 3%, it only grows 1% and you prepared for 3%, that could kind of get you in trouble. Talk to me about how that was handled this year.
Yo, really good question. Man, you have been studying up on your questions. So this year we budgeted for growth in students. We budgeted for about 300 to 400 additional students this year. Right now, our enrollment's pretty flat from where we ended last year. So that is a delta for us. That is going to potentially create us some funding challenges as we go through the rest of the year. Right now, we're getting close to what we call the snapshot day, the last Friday in October, which is kind of where we submit most of our student data to the state, and that's kind of our start point for the year. So I do anticipate that we're going to be behind budgeted expectations for student enrollment. We do have the ability to make some of that up. As you know, we don't budget on the number of students. We budget on their attendance. So we have been budgeting relatively conservative, about 93% attendance for students. Traditionally, we're more in the 95 range, 94.5, 95. So we do have the ability to still earn the revenue that we had anticipated based off student attendance. But to be really honest, we need a really good year of student attendance if we're going to meet that mark. So if that's not looking like it's going to be plausible as we go through the year, we'll start looking at what ways we can trim back on some of our expenditures. Are there some things, maybe a maintenance item that we can delay for another year? Can we do it next year in another budget? We'll start having some real scrutiny over supplies and other contracted services as we go through the year. But as you pointed out earlier, DV, 80 to 85% of our budget is made up in staff and salaries. And so for the vast majority of our budget, that money is committed through the hiring and retention of quality staff. And so we plan to honor those. We do not have at this point a plan to implement a reduction in force or any other plans that would cause us to separate with employees for budgetary reasons. So we will have to continue to monitor it, and we'll have to reevaluate again next year as we go through that budget process to make sure that we are being conservative if this year ends up in a deficit at the end of the year from operations.
Because that's important, student attendance, and we're setting the rate at 93. I remember Dr. Hollingsworth were talking about 94, 95 last year. I think it was, or a year before. But Superintendent McCutchen, how do you plan on dealing with those kind of attendance issues, trying to bring up attendance? What are some of the things you'd like to see done?
Now, I'd most definitely like to see our campuses try to offer some attendance incentives and try to get those kiddos in the classrooms. And honestly, for me, yes, it is, funding is important, but at the end of the day, when kids are not in the classrooms, they're not learning. And that is crucial. We have to be in those classrooms to be able to make that academic progress that's incredibly important. But straight from your question is, how do we work to improve attendance? That's changed a lot since COVID as well, and we can't blame it on that. But with various flu symptoms, colds, sickness, kids stay home, and we understand that there's that requirement. But as people are healthy, we definitely want to push and ask that come to school. We need to see you in the classrooms, and then the benefit of that, of course, is helping with our percentage for funding.
Ryan, what was the priorities that the board gave the district? And at that time when you were doing the budget, on the district side, what were some of the priorities they saw and what came together?
Sure. So we had two main priorities. The board told us that all staff should get a pay raise this year because last year it was very minimal to no raises for most staff. And then they told us you will remain in a balanced budget. So within that, we have the flexibility and latitude to address district concerns and needs as long as all staff got a raise and we stayed in a balanced budget.
Nice. Now, when it comes to the tax rate, there's always taxes or something that just gets pretty darn interesting. But what ended up being the tax rate, and did the district what did the district bring to the board for a tax rate that would be suitable to fund operations?
So our tax rate that was proposed for the 25-26 school year is unchanged from the 24-25 school year. So with legislative action, we know that there's a constitutional amendment to increase the homestead exemption. And so we, as the district, the state of Texas has kind of told us, plan your budgets as if this passes. So districts in the area and around the state have all planned as if that constitutional amendment is going to pass. And so what that really does is it lowers the amount of value we have subject to taxation with the increasing homestead exemption. So it held our taxable values pretty flat for the year. And so as a district that's already at the maximum compressed M&O rate, there was no need to further compress it. So we held our M&O rate steady, and then on the INS side, there's no need for us to increase our INS rate. So we did propose, and the board did adopt a flat tax rate from last year.
How much revenue do you know how much revenue we brought into the district?
On the general fund side, about 128 million. On the interest and sinking, about 42 million. So overall, about 170-ish million between those two funds.
How was as far as, I know we did a balanced budget, and then as far as I lost my train of thought there. I'm sorry. So the tax rate was set the same as last year to try to keep that going. Were the priorities able to get funded with what you had?
Yes, sir. So the budget that was presented to the board was a balanced budget. We were able to give all staff an increase. So the state sent us money through the teacher retention allotment to give a lot of our teaching staff a pay raise. It did not include everybody. So the district did fill in that gap and went back and made sure that every staff member who returned from last year would receive that pay raise. So our auxiliary staff, our clerical staff, our paraprofessionals, our administrative staff, and those teachers that the state did not provide funds for, all of those positions did receive a pay raise this year.
What cuts happened? What things did you guys have to back off on and maybe just defer to the future? Like you were talking about, some things had to be deferred. What had to be deferred on this budget?
Sure. So in the spring of last year, we actually had a budget reduction committee that was meeting to make sure that we were trying to streamline our operations as best we could. And so that committee came up with some recommendations, and those were implemented as part of this year. So for one, we've looked at having a person on every campus. We had one last year that's devoted to PEIMS, which is the Public Education Information Management System. So it takes all the data of a student, their age, ethnicity, their grades, all that information that we have to report to the state. So this year we're trying out a centralized process. Instead of having one at every elementary campus, we're having some that are shared between elementary campuses as a way that through attrition, we had some people who were leaving, retiring, resigning. So we just didn't fill those positions, and we're trying out this multi-campus process to see if it's efficient, if it will work for us, if there are ways that with being creative with our staffing that we are able to save some funds. So that's one area that we looked into. We also looked at not having as many aid positions or paraprofessional positions at our junior high level. And so like we took some out of the library. And so now we have the librarians at the junior highs without their paraprofessional, again, to see if that's something that's sustainable for our district. But all those moves were made with the goal of trying to make sure that all staff got a pay raise.
Fund balance and the debt on the district. You keep a balanced budget, but there is some overall debt. How did we do this year in this budget with the INS side and the fund balance?
Yeah, so INS fund balance, we right now our plan is to eat into fund balance. You may remember a couple of years ago we added about 10 million to fund balance in 1 year. And so from that, the whole purpose in that was to start drawing down from it to make sure that the tax rate impact to our taxpayers was as small as possible. So when we issued or when the voters approved the 574 million in bonds back in 2023, we told the taxpayers that the rate would only go up 2.9 cents. So a little less than the 3 that we advertised at that point. And so right now, in keeping with that, we are eating a little bit of fund balance out of the INS fund, about $1 million to about $2 million a year. So right now there's about 12 million in INS fund balance. Our financial target is right about 7 to 8 million. So we still have a little bit of extra wiggle room in there. As our property values continue to grow, we may utilize those funds instead of on new issues. We may use that excess fund balance to go ahead and pay off some debt early. So right now we're sitting in a good spot in INS fund balance. Due to a change in state law, we did issue $100 million this year of that debt that was authorized by the voters in 2023. And that is to support our high school project that we're constructing. So right now we've issued all of the debt that we believe that we're going to need for the construction price of that building. We do still have some unissued debt from that May proposition. We have about 75 million in unissued debt right now. 42 million of it is to support Frankie Lou Jett Elementary, which, like I said earlier, we haven't started building. And the remainder is about 30 million left over for the high school project, the Waxahachie Creek construction project. Right now, we're sitting in a really good spot with our debt in terms of what was authorized versus what's issued. And overall, we're still at a very sustainable spot with our issued debt being serviced at our current tax rate.
Anything major financially hit after this budget has been done in the recent times? Have you guys been hit with anything unexpected costs?
One big thing that we're kind of struggling with, and we know other districts around us are struggling with as well, is getting quality certified teachers. And so we have found some areas, particularly in special education, where we've had to contract some service providers. And so we've had to go outside of the normal realm of just hiring a person to come in and be that service provider. We've had to enter into some contracts for those positions. And as you can imagine, they're significantly more expensive than it would cost for us to hire an employee. Federally mandated, we have to meet the minutes, and it's what's best for kids. So we have gone that route and entered into some contracts. But that's really the most significant thing that has impacted us to this point in our budget this year.
I really do appreciate you talking these things because it is an incredibly difficult topic. It shouldn't be. School funding shouldn't be, but it isn't like, balancing a checkbook and home finances. It's a weird thing that moves, and you have to try to keep the money within the right thing as this money moves. You get some, you don't get some. You don't get what was expected, so you have to adjust. It is a monster. So thank you for doing what you do every day in that. But as I close out, I definitely want to talk about some of the fun stuff. So one of the things, like I mentioned, is near and dear to my heart is special education. As a dad with special needs kid, I had to advocate for them. I had to spend hours reading to know the law and know this and know that, to be able to advocate for my kids so that they could get the services that they were supposed to get or, were entitled to. And that being said, I want to know, Superintendent McCutchen, what is your thoughts on special education? Have you taken a little bit extra interest in it? And then what would you like to tell the parents that maybe are kind of struggling to get this communication between the school? Because a lot of it is communication, man. So getting that communication with the district about what the kids need.
Well, sure. And thank you for letting me talk about that. Special education is very near and dear to my heart. I've spent a lot of time working with special education children, and I think probably where my eyes were open the most to special education was as an educational diagnostician, where I was the one actually conducting the evaluations and then having to meet with the parents and talk about, the category that their child would be receiving services under. And sometimes when you have those conversations with parents, it's difficult, and you're having to talk about some pretty hefty labels that fall with those disabilities. And at the end of the day, we are talking about children. It's a child who has a disability. That doesn't mean they can't learn. It doesn't mean that as a school district that we have to stop trying. It just means that we have to do things differently for that child. So our special education here at Waxahachie ISD is led by Erin Edmonston. She's our director. I think she does a fabulous job. She has an amazing team. And so she works really hard with her team to make sure the campuses are supported. Our principals do a great job, principals, administrators, and counselors. And then we have amazing special ed staff on the campuses who truly do work day in and day out. They're really the boots on the ground, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. And as parents, I can understand that. I have sat through, I can't tell you how many countless ARD meetings with parents and trying, and I can just imagine their feelings. And they come in and they sit down in a meeting with all of us school employees, and they're listening to us tell them, what the data says about the child. But we cannot lose focus of the fact that is still a child, it is still a student, and we're going to serve them to the best of our abilities. There's certain laws that govern that. We will not go outside of our laws, but I truly believe schools are for kids. And as adults, we went into school business to serve kids. And I will say that all the time, schools are for kids. That's what we're going to do.
I love that. Well, I have ran out of time. I do appreciate you guys coming on. I definitely want to do something with CTE. I would love to, because that's another near and dear to my heart. But eventually, unfortunately, I have run out of time. Can you stick around after the show real quick?
Absolutely.
Thank you.